Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing the rise and fall of Gongsun Zan lore series with episode 2, titled A New Boss. Now last time we ended as Gongsun Zan's appointment to lead a new regiment of Wuhuan cavalry indirectly triggered a rebellion in the north as Zhang Chun felt spurned by Gongsun Zan's selection over him, so teaming up with the former administrator of Taishan, Zhang Ju, who was now a wealthy gentry in the Zhongshan princedom, and Qiu Liju, who was a Wuhuan chieftain of Liaoxi, Zhang Chun's rebellion would ravage much of the northern realms. Thus, instead of marching west to assist the Han efforts against the Liang rebellion, Gongsun Zan would be reassigned to Youbeiping to deal with Zhang Chun, as the rebels have made it their base of operation after killing the local administrator Liu Zheng. And much like how Gongsun Zan was vastly outnumbered when he first led the charge against the Xianbei raiding party years ago in Liaodong, he would charge headfirst with his 3,000 Wuhuan riders against a force that was at least 3 times their number. And much like that first time, Gongsun Zan would come out ahead, as Zhang Chun's rabble could not stand up against the skilled Wuhuan horse archers. Chasing Zhang Chun out of Youbeiping, Gongsun Zan would be rewarded with a promotion to captain of the cavalry, but the war was far from over, as for the next 4 years, Gongsun Zan and Zhang Chun would continue to skirmish all across the north with wins for both sides. And by 187, Gongsun Zan would regain control of Liaoxi, as the local Wuhuan tribes under Tan Zhiwang would surrender to the Han once again. This would land Gongsun Zan additional promotions up the military ladder, while also earning himself a second marquis title. Then in 188, Zhang Chun and Qiu Liju's forces would amass around Shimen in Liaodong, forcing Gongsun Zan into a decisive battle. The Battle of Shimen would end with Zhang Chun's forces shattered, with Zhang Chun himself abandoning his family to flee deep into Wuhuan territory in the north. Eager to defeat Zhang Chun for good, Gongsun Zan ordered his battered forces to pursue. But this decision would ultimately doom Gongsun Zan, as his deep pursuit into Wuhuan land would allow the Wuhuan chieftain Qiu Liju to replenish his forces. So instead of catching Zhang Chun, Gongsun Zan and his exhausted army would end up trapped inside a small city called Guanzicheng for the next 200 days, as Qiu Liju's troops put them under siege. Without any Han forces to reinforce them or to resupply them, food eventually ran out, as Gongsun Zan would go on to lose more than half of his men to either the siege defense or starvation. Luckily, by the end of the 200 days, Qiu Liju's forces also ran out of food, as they would pull back to Liucheng to resupply. Gongsun Zan and the skeleton of his original force would escape back to Han territory, as from this point on, all Gongsun Zan could do is protect the borders against occasional raids, as he could no longer contend with Qiu Liju's forces. But for his effort in chasing out the Wuhuan forces and expelling Zhang Chun, Gongsun Zan would earn himself the rank of lieutenant with a title called Xianglu Xiaowei, or the lieutenant who defeated the rebels. At the same time, Gongsun Zan would also earn the respect from the Wuhuan tribes, whose raiding parties now knew to stay away from the band of white horses, as Gongsun Zan gave all his battle-hardened surviving units from the original Wuhuan regiment white horses, as they would now be nicknamed Bai Ma Yi Cong, or the White Horse Auxiliary Riders. And since the enemy now feared his white horses, Gongsun Zan would continue to rebuild his cavalry unit with all white horses from this point on. But despite Gongsun Zan's fame, he could not eliminate the Wuhuan threats, as Qiu Liju would continue to raid all across the Han borders. So by late 188, the Han court decided to try a different approach, as Liu Yu would be assigned as the new governor of the You province in an effort to solve the Wuhuan problem once and for all. Now, Liu Yu was a distant relative to the emperor. Previously, he was the prefect of the You province, where he managed to maintain a great and peaceful relationship with all the neighboring kingdoms, including Xianbei, Wuhuan, and Fuyu, through his fair policies and reputation as a member of the imperial clan. However, due to the eunuch's takeover of the court politics back in the capital, Liu Yu would eventually lose his job. Then, following the aftermath of Yellow Turban Rebellion, with much of the north in shambles, the court once again decided that Liu Yu, with his reputation as a fair administrator, would be perfect in a role that would appease the remnants of the Yellow Turban forces and bring them back into the fold as citizens in the Ji province, as he would end up taking on the role as the chancellor for the princedom of Ganling, where he would do exactly that. His successes would eventually see him promoted to become the Minister of the Household, which is one of the 9 minister positions back in the capital. But with the relationship with the Wuhuan tribe strained again in the north, Liu Yu would be called forth by the court once again to head north and solve its problems, this time as the governor of the Yue province, which would make him Gongsun Zan's new boss. And Gongsun Zan would resent his new boss from day one, as they had completely opposing philosophies on how to deal with nomadic tribes. While Liu Yu preached tolerance, fair policies, and peace, Gongsun Zan only knew war, as it was the only instrument in his mind that would continue to elevate him up the political ladder, as no one needed a general in peacetime. And if we just look back on Gongsun Zan's entire career up to this point, he had earned everything by fighting the nomads and made a name for himself doing it. So when Liu Yu's first order of business as the new governor of the Yue province was sending envoys to the various chieftains explaining that he now represented the Han government in this area and was willing to give everyone pardons for all their past transgressions if the raid stopped, Gongsun Zan immediately tried to interfere, as he knew Liu Yu's name alone would carry weight in the north. And just as Gongsun Zan had predicted, once the nomadic tribes heard that the previous prefect, Liu Yu, was back in charge of the Yue province and was willing to give them pardons if they simply stopped the raids, all of them agreed, as they sent envoys along with tributes back to Liu Yu. This sudden peace now threatened Gongsun Zan's future, so in a brazen move, Gongsun Zan attempted to attack the nomadic peace envoys before they reached Liu Yu. Thankfully, the nomadic envoys caught wind of Gongsun Zan's troop movements ahead of time and cleverly took the long way around to reach Liu Yu safely. While Liu Yu would be nice to nomadic tribes, he would take a hard stance against Han rebels, as he would place bounties on the head of Zhang Chun and Zhang Ju, who both had escaped north. And by March of 189, just a few months after Liu Yu's arrival, Zhang Chun would be betrayed by his own officer, Wang Zheng, as his head would be presented to Liu Yu before being sent to the capital, as Zhang Chun's rebellion was finally over. Qiu Liju would surrender to the Han and become a vassal again, until his nephew and heir, Ta Dun, would pledge their tribe over to Yuan Shang before dying at Zhang Liao's hand at the Battle of Mount Bailang. Zhang Ju was never heard from again, as it was assumed that he had fled far, far away, or perhaps had died. Gongsun Zan would not be punished for his actions against the nomadic envoys, but with the war over, Liu Yu would greatly reduce the Han troops in the area, leaving roughly only 10,000 troops in total, which he graciously left under the command of Gongsun Zan. Liu Yu would soon receive a promotion to Grand Commandant, which he tried to turn down 4 separate times, as he would recommend other suitable candidates each time. But Emperor Liu Hong was persistent, as the usually greedy emperor even exempted Liu Yu from paying the usual promotion fee that Liu Hong required, as the emperor knew Liu Yu was a very incorruptible official and he simply did not have the money. So Liu Yu finally accepted the position as Grand Commandant in 189, along with a marquis title called Rongqiu Hou. And with that, our episode also comes to an end, as we'll continue next time to discuss how Emperor Liu Hong's sudden death and Dong Zhuo's takeover in the capital would affect the balance of power in the north, as the ambitious Gongsun Zan will continue to butt heads with his new boss, Liu Yu. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode enough to hit that like button to help support the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!